Hello. Hi. Time for another pretentious review of a video game. Today's game is called Gone Home.
So you know what they say about the best laid plans of mice and men? Yeah, turns out it applies to Street Fighter too. At least I worked up the courage to walk into the 7-Eleven and ask for a turn, but all that practice at home did not exactly translate in the wild. So after I was finished getting my butt kicked, I followed them outside while they smoked. And that was when she asked me if I was that psycho house girl.
Gone Home is an exploration game, for lack of a better descriptor. It was developed by the Fulbright Company and is available for PC, Mac, and Linux on the Steam platform. Reviewing this game is rather difficult because its appeal lies almost entirely in the narrative, rather than things like the production value or technical achievements, which would at least be somewhat quantifiable. So I'll take care not to spoil too much of the story, since it is short and poignant. The conclusion can probably be reached within 90 minutes. That's so short it nearly obviates this entire review. You could simply play it instead of listening to this rambling. Anyway, the game is played in first-person perspective and is set entirely inside a house. If your first thought after hearing this was, "Finally, a game where I can shoot up a family," then you should probably turn around right now and look elsewhere for your deviant thrills. Well darn, obviously this game won't appeal to everyone. The controls are simple. You walk everywhere you go. You click everything you want to examine. You listen to the disembodied voice of your sister reading her journal to you as you find certain significant items in the house. You play as Kate, a girl of remarkable self-reliance, who returned from a backpacking trip through Europe a little bit early, only to discover the new family home left empty, containing only scattered clues to what has happened in her absence. Describing too much of the character development would also result in revealing too much of the story. However, it is worth mentioning how Kate was cleverly designed as the protagonist so as to create the coveted suspension of disbelief effect. It is astoundingly effective in its subtlety. Amidst the clues in the house, there were hints revealing Kate's own character to be the archetype of equanimity. Artifacts of her childhood showed her to be very inquisitive, methodical, and pragmatic even at a young age. Thus her actions, despite being controlled by an oblivious, childishly curious player, yours truly, are completely consistent with what would be expected had she been a real person in such a circumstance. Finding herself in a home she had never lived in, full of planted memories of her life and family, many of which she might have forgotten. In this way, she becomes an effective vessel for us to occupy as we travel through the mysterious house. And conveniently, all the obsessive, completionist behaviors that have been ingrained in us gamers over the years were not at all a cause for disfluency in the experience, but rather, it was something to be encouraged. As I scoured the house, rustling through books and drawers, and nostalgically listening to every music tape left behind, I thought, yep, I'm totally Kate right now.
And it was like, I don't know, I finally found someone I feel normal around. I drove her home and she gave me this tape and said, "You have got to listen to this." I haven't stopped playing it since.
I don't think I've ever seen a better implementation of the silent protagonist in a video game. Kate's emotional vacancy actually made sense here. It allowed me to insert my own feelings and thoughts, and throughout the gameplay, these feelings and thoughts were gently guided into something coherent with the story. It's hard to explain. As a counterexample, remember how Half-Life implemented the silent protagonist? Sure, it was revolutionary at the time, but remember when an NPC would ask Gordon Freeman a question, and you, as Gordon Freeman, would stand there seemingly dumbfounded, unable to respond. How clumsy that was in comparison. There was only one part of the game where control was taken away from the player. This became one of my favorite parts of the game. Kate finds a very private journal entry written by her sister describing a sexual experience. At first I started to read the letter in a clinical manner, as if it was my duty to comprehend all that was written. Suddenly, Kate puts the letter down before I manage to finish it all, and a small text swells near the cursor saying, "Oh, I really shouldn't be reading this." I clicked it again and Kate refuses to pick it up. Nope, not reading it. But my pang of frustration dissipated quickly into something of a sort of simulated empathy. This was not too different from how respect for someone's privacy feels. Sometimes our curiosity is bound by our conscience. It's not of great significance in the grand scheme of things in this game, but I found this to be a particularly memorable moment. Just one example of how I could relate with the character of Kate. The house itself was creepy. I was creeped out. It was dark. It made sounds. I had to turn every light on, and I left every door open. But whether or not the player saw some supernatural effects at play was secondary to the suspense built in one's own mind regarding the story told of the family. A piece of art can speak to the past experiences of an observer, or it can offer new experiences to observers who haven't any familiarity with the matter at hand. Gone Home does both of these things beautifully despite its simplicity. For instance, I am neither female, nor have I ever dealt with some of the specific issues addressed in the game. However, by the end of it all, for just a moment, I felt as though I had. Final score: Commentary on the Human Condition, out of 5.